Hello YouTube, and especially all you knife lovers out there. Finally had the opportunity to take the GSO 4.1 out into the woods for a field test, and I have to say I was very impressed with how this knife performed. This is fresh back from the woods. I have done nothing to the knife edge per my usual, except for clean up a little bit of the residue along the cutting edge, just so that when I do paper cut test here in a little bit, I'll be able to identify that the imperfections are in fact from the blade edge and not from any debris that could easily be removed. I want to know what happened with the steel. The first thing I wanted to kind of show everyone before I get to the test in this little mini introduction is this setup right here. As you know, I like dangle modifications, and I normally use the backing from my Cold Steel Master Hunter, which you've seen in previous videos. However, my wife, this is her knife as I said, and she was using it during this camping trip. So I put it back on her knife so she would be able to carry it, and I wanted to do something to try to mimic that on my own. So I tried a couple configurations. This is what I came up with. I took the dangler modification from one of my bark rivers, and I looped that through a piece of paracord that I then wrapped around the belt clip that comes with the knife. So you can see it kind of runs under through here like this and up underneath those clips right here, backside of this. So it actually worked okay. At one point I had another piece of paracord through here to kind of keep the knife from leaning away from my body too far. It got kind of annoying. So in the sapling cut test, which is the first test I actually did on camera, you'll see that this is wrapped around my leg and this is in place, but then for the rest of the video you'll see it as I used it, and has actually how it comes, which is with just this configuration right here, which is what I showed you in a previous video on all the modifications that I've made. So there you have it. I'll save the look at the examination of the knife till the end of the video after you've seen all of the segments. Anyway guys, hope you enjoy the review. Again, go down to the informational section below. I make a couple of comments on the knife. I break the video down into its major segments so that you can jump to and in between those as you see fit without having to watch the whole thing if that's what you prefer. And then at the bottom, I try to do a mental recap and do an evaluation of the knife based on a scale of like 1 to 5 numbers and give you kind of a quick access evaluation of how I saw the knife. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll catch you guys back after the field footage and we'll look and see how this knife edge held up. Okay, gonna try a sapling push cut test now, and I found this sapling. You can see it's already leaning, and I don't know if you can see in the picture here, but the ground's really kind of weak because this again is a flood zone. I've been trying to come here to do my sapling test because a lot of the trees are already kind of weak at the soil level. So I'm going to try to do a push cut test here. This should still be green. There's some little branches that indicate that it should be. We'll see how well the 4.1 does with a sapling cut. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get quite the tension in the base that I would like to get, but we'll see how well it does. All right. That just went into the leaves. I know from the camera angle it may look like it went into the ground, but the ground's actually a lot deeper. So the knife did not go into the ground at all, and it made a very clean cut. So it did a great job for a thicker beveled knife. Again, it's got the saber grind, so it's not super thick, not exactly like a Bravo 1, but I expected it to kind of split a little bit more than it did. I didn't get a true arc to the tree, something I would normally really try to get a lot of tension in the fibers and let the tree almost rip along the wedge, but this one did a great job slicing right through it. This 3V with this convex edge on this saber grind is extremely sharp, and it actually did an outstanding job. Let me get a close-up angle there for you so I can show you. All right guys, so here's that cut that I just made. You see it compared to the blade edge, it's fairly thick, and this went right through it with no problem. It's very, very clean. See if I can rotate it anywhere. I'm using a new camera, but you can see that it's a fairly clean cut. Alright, I was going to do a chop test with this knife since it is bigger. And I found this tree that is incomplete at the top. It's basically dying, but I think possibly down here, lower on the trunk, I will be able to do a chop cut test through the green. So we'll see how that goes. Alright, it does appear that it could still be green down here at the base, so we're going to see how it goes. I did also move the sheath up into the high vertical point so you can see how high it hits off the waist standard. I'm going to see how this goes. One thing I do like about this knife is that the pommel end sticks out beyond the end of the scales. So if I'm in a situation where I need to drive the knife forward, I can hit the back without worrying about ruining the handle scale. So that's a nice touch. You see it splits really well. Kind of a heavy piece of wood, so try to get a good angle on it. Swing with a lot of accuracy. So, as you can see, decent girth tree. This is probably 2.5 inches, maybe 3 inches in diameter. So, it will do the job no problem. The tip, I did hit it several times with the really heavy baton, and it didn't take any bends or chips or breaks or anything. And this 3V held up really well. So there you have it. Not the cleanest cut I've ever done in the forest, but again, it's a tree I happened to be walking by. I wasn't necessarily going to do this test. I was walking by actually trying to find a place to find a sapling to cut, and I found this tree hanging, arcing up over the pathway, the end completely cut off and starting to die from the tip backwards, and so the base was still green enough to go through it. So there you go. Again, axe is always easier, but a lot of people don't like the backpack with that much weight. And if you're looking for something in a knife to be able to handle heavier tasks, if the event presented itself where you needed to do it, it's nice knowing that your knife can do it. And so far, the Survive 4.1 has been stellar. On to the next test. Okay, going to try some batoning now. Got a really good baton here, a good heavy piece of, I don't know, it's oak or maple or something, but it's pretty dense. And I've been doing a little bit of batoning with the GSO already, but obviously not in front of the camera. So we'll see how it handles. And so far things have been going really well. Found various kinds of wood here. Some of it's thicker, denser than others, but we'll see how it goes. There it goes. Very clean cut. Got my dogs out here this time on the trip, so if you see my husky or my Shiba pop into frame, they're with me. It's a different stick, but different baton, but we can use it. This may be at a harder angle. This is a very dense piece. Let's see here. Yeah, this is one that I was hitting on earlier, or it's one that they fractured between two trees. So one thing I can tell you so far, again, not everything I'm doing out here is on camera. I don't have enough battery power, and you know, you don't need to see all of it. They have a tendency to run a little long anyway, but it's really surprised me. I knew that people had said the 4.1 was a great knife. I agree with the balance, the way it feels in the hand. The materials are all top notch. The jimping is great. I'll try to show you near sundown when we start the fire, but the ferro rod notch that I got on the top of this works exceptionally well. And even with this, it's kind of a Scandivex really. It's a saber grind, again, with my added convex at the end. It's performing really well. It reminds me of a Bravo or a Sahara, but again, 3V steel. I mean, I still feel it still feels crazy sharp. So far, the heat treat and everything on this appears to be holding up very well, because I don't see really any edge damage. And already at this point, again, I never know how I'm going to cut the video, but I've already taken down a sapling. I chopped through the tree that I found that was dead at the top. I've batoned several pieces of wood back in camp. I'm batoning what you've seen me do here now, and there's signs of use on this thing, and it's holding up really well. And again, when I come out here to test these knives, you know, I want to see how they're going to hold up, because I want to know, you know, based on what type of trip I'm going on, who I'm going with, how long I'll be gone, what knife I want to take. And I want to make sure that batoning and feather sticking and notching are all things that it can do, but that it can hold up under more serious tasks if called upon. And so far, this has done really well. I mean, just an outstanding knife. Again, I look forward to seeing how the retention is over the long haul. I don't take any stropping or sharpening gear out here. I will be out here for 3 days. This is day 1. And I look forward to really abusing it, actually. I'm not going to do anything super stupid with it, or at least I don't intend to. But I do want to take it through its paces, because this is a knife that has a reputation for being able to handle what you throw at it. And so far, just a great knife. No hot spots, comfortable in the hand. I'm really wanting to get in to do some feather sticking after all of this abuse, because that will let me kind of see some first indicators of if there is any damage, if there's anything that's if it's starting to dull. So bunch of knots down through that one, especially here at the end. It smells great. Again, I don't see any dings on this, handling it very, very well. It's traditionally a tough area to baton through on some pieces of wood. Sorry, there's this joint here at the top, this Y area. And typically that's a pretty tough area to try to get through. So I'm gonna start up there. Whew. Well, it was very tough, but it got through it. Again, it frayed off a little bit to the side, but pretty tough knot right there. It got through it. Again, I hope that this holds up like I think it probably will, because this is an outstanding knife. Like here I am going through the hard grain, cross grain to start a new baton line in hopes that that'll help. And this is a tough piece of wood, and jammed right through that. So I'm gonna do it again. Again, not normally something I would do, but I want to see how well this holds up. If this continues to perform with this level of, I don't know, awesomeness, and that edge retention holds up like it looks like it could, this may become my new favorite knife. I like that you can get new scales for it, change the color if one gets beat up, or you decide you want to try something different for a look. I like that option. They're not very expensive. I think they're around $25 or $30 depending on material. I am going to try to figure out the sheath situation. I do want to get a dangler for it just in case. It's a little too high on the hip for me, and I find when I'm going to put it back in the sheath that I can grab too much potential to cut my shirt, because this is crazy sharp. And so that's part of the reason I like it lower. That, and if you watch my other videos, for hammock work, I like it to be able to flow freely from my side, but really, really thin. This one, I don't know if you can tell it, is going to be a challenge for the thickness of it, because I'm not going to have a lot of striking room at the tip, but going to try it. There's a really heavy knot right here. You can hear it cracking. Right now, you can't see it. I'm actually striking it on the jimping, trying to get this through here. And the tip, I think it'll get through it. Again, well, I may not be able to get through it now. You can, I don't know if my mic can pick it up, but you can hear that wood splintering. I'm gonna see if I can get it. There we go. All right. Well, I'd call that a success. That is a really tough piece of wood. And I hit the dickens out of the tip of that and the jimping. And you've got wood residue, as you'd expect, pieces of the wood hitting hard and scraping off and kind of actually sticking to the edge of the blade. Lots of batoning. Again, much off camera, but let me grab this pile right here. This was what was just done in frame. There's a few more pieces to my right, but you can see it handled it. Soft wood, dense wood, very, very hard wood, dry wood, somewhat damp wood. Went through it very well. And looking at the edge on it, you could definitely tell that the blade's been through some activities today. But overall, still feels pretty darn good. So gonna get back to camp and try some feather sticking, and that'll be the next test. Again, this is a fairly short piece of wood, so I'm not going to be able to get a lot of leverage on it, but it's got a really good angle for me to try. And as you see, shavings are coming off pretty thin, curling really well. This may actually be a piece of oak. Try to give you an indicator of how sharp the knife still is. Instead of doing the normal leverage, I'm just going to try to just do a wrist flick and slice it. And again, this is after doing a really rather large pile of batoning. Also chopping through that standing tree, working with some saplings. This is a really relatively, this is a little bit harder piece of wood than I was expecting, but you know, it does pretty well. Try to get curls on both sides so it catches a little bit easier. And an effort to get a fire going. Just cut those off. Go higher up on the blade, sharp throughout. This side's feather sticking a little bit tighter because of the way the wood is, but there's one. See how this sparkleberry does. Goes Dante. This part right here is kind of annoying. Yeah, no more problems with that. And as you can see by these curls, still very, very sharp knife. I'm actually very pleased with the angle on this. I thought it would be too thin, but the taper is very, very nice. I would highly recommend that Guy over at Survive really consider putting a convex on this knife. That would make it just about perfect, in my opinion anyway. I'm partial to convex knives. Obviously this, so far anyway, this 3V steel, I love the tumbled finish. Of course mine's a little bit ruined now because I put that edge on it, but very comfortable in the hand. Not nearly as slick as some other knives I've worked with. Bark River notably about the slickest that I've ever tried across the board. But so far, an amazing knife for how I use knives anyway. I'll come down the other side here and try to the one good thing is this coming out kind of like cedar bark a little bit. Oops, sorry. Coming a little bit out like cedar, and but it's really dry. I know it'll catch. So I want to possibly work on getting some very, very fine shavings here. Going slow to try to keep from cracking through the end. You can see a lot of these shavings have already come off. And I'm going to try to show you here as much as possible and try to get it in this beam of sunlight here, but I mean, it still does these really fine rolls. No problem at all. Knife is still very sharp. It doesn't even need a corner either. Sometimes it curls better if you can find a corner, you know, like a sharper line or something, but it's pretty rounded now and it's just gliding right along there. These fine ones, I'm going to try to just let the blade do the work. Now I can get some very, very sharp shavings, really thin shavings with a true Scandi, like a 0 gram Scandi, something like the Mora Black or the Enzo Camper, because they bite so quickly. But this is doing a terrific job. Trying to get the fire going, so it does feather sticking very well. Even after a lot of more intense work, you can see a little bit of the corrosion on the blade, and again, that's from wood debris, from going through wood or being struck on the back by wood. But anyway, gonna make another feather stick here and prepare for tonight, and then if I have enough light, I'll show you the spark throwing ability of the ferro notch when time comes to make a fire. So this is a Light My Fire steel, and the ferro notch cut in the top right here. And I've got a cotton ball. Let's see if I can get it going without it. There we go. Sorry about that instant cut because the camera battery died. It just shut off right in the middle of recording. Anyway, what I was about to say is normally when I do this steep angle through a thicker piece of green wood like this, I'll go ahead and kind of baton it at an angle, but let's look at something like maybe a chest lever cut or the like. I'm just wetting my fingers to get some of this gunk off the blade here. Alright, and so we'll come at this angle right here and see how it goes. I hope I'm in the shot, but oh, shit. So it went through it, not super clean, but that's a thick piece of wood, and this is a thick blade, so this will give you an idea that it's still really, really sharp despite all the task I put it through. There we go. So go to this angle, just rock it back and forth. There we go. And one more side here. Make it, hopefully this is focusing, but you can see, just make a sharp point to get into the ground later. And now, all I'm going to do is cram these down in here to get some separation, to hold the cotton ball, which I'm going to use again with that liquid, that melted citronella wax on it. Seemed to do a really good job last time, so we'll go that route again. Only want to be needing 3. But anyway, there it is. That shows up in focus. And the end, again, just sticking to the ground like so. So there's one little project now. Last time I was out here, I actually made a Dakota pit and actually brewed some food and stuff on it, boiled some water anyway. And I don't really think I'm going to do that this time around. Again, just more people out here and stuff. But I would like to see how this notches for, again, a slightly thicker blade. Yep. And again, every time I go into this wood, even though it's softer, there's this crud, all kinds of, like, you know, a little bit of dirt and some rotting wood and stuff, and it takes a toll on a knife edge. So again, I will be interested to see how well this holds up. Again, right now all I'm doing is trying to get a little bit of that gunk off. The knife edge still looks and feels great. But I'm basically going to do just a little bit of a thumb cut push here. Thumb on the back of the blade. Now you can go along the jipping as well. And then kind of rock to get that cut out. And this would be like a straight edge at the top and a slanted angle at the bottom. And this is kind of a thinner piece of green wood, but you know, it's a fairly good test to see how that would do. And you can see, does it no problem at all. If you had a thicker piece of wood, maybe not this thick, but somewhere in that range, you could sharpen the end and make a notch and then use it as a tent stake or something like that. I know a lot of bushcrafters and stuff will do twin edge angles. They'll come in and do some rock cuts like this, and they'll use these type of things to do a, honestly I don't know what the technical name for it is, but they'll use them to make, like, some of them call them like fence poles. It's basically a log cabin effect. You make a V in one piece of wood like this, something like that anyway, and then you get another piece of wood. I'll just take it off this same sample here. Alright, so there's my V right there, and then the other way you'll try to do an opposite that. I've actually never done this before. I'm just kind of trying to think my way through it. I've seen people do things like this, but myself, never done it. Let's see. Anyway, you get the idea. Make a V the opposite direction, and they place some, you know, so you make like a tongue and groove almost type of thing. Let's see if it almost stayed, but you get the idea. And you know, people use this for various things. You can make, you know, grates, I guess, for a Dakota pit and stuff like that. Of course, I just line up as many of the greens as I need to cover it, but you get the idea. But if you're into working with green wood a lot, it's definitely fine enough to do that. Now remember, I do have the convex added to that, so the V-edge is gone. Outstanding blade, lots of fun to use, very comfortable in the hand. I mean, it's wicked sharp. You know, it was really sharp when I came from home. I kind of got it conditioned up. I had been playing with it at the house some for feather sticking, but just it doesn't really lag in any areas. I mean, it's as sharp as you'd ever need it. It's as tough as you'd need it. Again, I'm going to be doing more stuff off camera. I'm kind of running low on batteries here, but I'll do more feather sticking, and I'll do probably a little bit more batoning and more notching and stuff for sure, just doing junk in camp. But it's a very, very good knife. I'm really loving this thing, and I can see why so many people are trying to get their hands on one. All right, guys, now I'm going to take a look and see how well the knife edge and the overall condition of the knife held up after some pretty heavy work. That's some of the heaviest work that I've issued to a single knife over a 3-year period. So again, all feather sticking, all batoning that I did in camp, plus the tests you actually saw on camera, were done with this knife and only this knife. And I have to tell you, I was truly amazed at how much I enjoyed using this knife. Overall, it held up extraordinarily well. 3V, a very good steel in general, but this knife did an excellent job at holding its edge in the field. I mean, it still feels very sharp to me. Again, this does not have the V edge. I've said it repeatedly, but I just want to make sure that this is fair to everyone out there, that I did not use the factory issued V edge to do this testing. I did try it at home. I thought about taking it into the woods with the original edge on it. I really just didn't care for it. So check the videos I've also linked in the description below to see kind of my evaluation of the knife before it and after it. I just really do prefer a convex over a V-edge. I prefer a Scandi even over a V-edge. So now I've got the saber grind, and then right here it transitions into a really kind of a shallow convex. And so I was curious to see how well this 3V Rendition would hold up with such a thin edge, and it did outstanding. It still feels very sharp. I can tell you from looking at it and rubbing my finger along the blade edge that up here near the belly, I don't know if you can see this reflection light, but right here, I'll try to show you a close-up in a minute. It is gonna have a little bit of probably rolling to it. This is the part of the knife that when I was batoning the wood, even the green stuff, would constantly go into that wood that was below it. And you just, over several times of getting hard struck into a semi-tough surface below it, it's just on that fine of an edge, it's going to take a little bit of dinging. But honestly, it could have been far worse. This knife, its heat treat, everything about it is durable. I had no problems with it at all. So I'm going to try to see if I can get it to focus up here. You'll see it did take a little bit of rusting here and up here along the nose up here a little bit, and then on this side there's a little bit as well. Nothing major, but this is not treated with tough cloth. It was in very, very wet conditions for about 18 hours at least. It was a non-stop downpour, and it was in the Kydex sheath, but moisture would build up in there, so that's not bad actually for what I thought it might do. So semi-rust prone. Even up here on the tumbled area, I don't want to try to take any credit away from Survive and say that well, it only rusted down here where I kind of ground away the coating. No, it's up here near the top of the knife as well on their original tumbled finish. So it did take a little bit of rust, but nothing major at all. As I hope this will focus from the spine, you can see that there's no tip damage at all. I mean, I beat the snot out of this into the knife quite a bit with heavy, hard wood, and I beat it down here along that too when I was batoning. No major damage at all. I mean, almost everything's going to come out completely with a little bit of flits. So I'm not concerned about that at all. The edge that was fairly fine on it, as you can see, held up extremely well. I don't think this particular lens is going to focus too much closer than this, but you can see that it really did, let me see if I can get it in the light, do an outstanding job. I was very, very pleased with how this thing performed. It could have easily taken chipping, more rolling, or anything than it did, and I was very, very pleased with how this held up. So I do have a piece of paper here with me, and I'll see how the edge is with a cut test. Again, never definitive of anything, but at least it will help give an idea of how well the edge holds up. And I'm going to start down here, the wind will stay out of my face, start way down here where it probably got the most attention as far as cutting, and then kind of go up through the blade tip. So we got a little bit of fraying right here if I go slow. If I go quicker, it's not noticeable, or as noticeable. It's slightly hairy, it does get through it, but if I go real slow and try to let the knife push through it, you'll see it kind of hiccups here and there just a little bit. But given the amount of abuse that this knife went through, that is outstanding in my opinion. As good, if not better, than, you know, any knife I've tested. This would still get you by in the field very easily. I would say that this knife, and this is, you know, subjective based on how much I used it both off and on camera, and my estimation would be that this knife should be able to take that kind of work for several days on end without having any type of major edge imperfections. That's just my opinion based on use. The original V edge is very strong. It's just not extremely sharp, especially for finer tasks like feather sticking. So that deeper, like right now, if it's more like this, and that original V edge is, you know, maybe something more like this, that's going to be even more resilient to chipping and stuff. So the original edge could have been even stronger. I just don't feel that it was as sharp. So outstanding knife. I mean, outstanding knife. It's right at $200. The ferro notch performed brilliantly. I was kind of out of angle on that. I'll try to show you. I am outdoors. Everything around me is green, but I was out of position. I didn't realize the camera angle was so bad, but it does do a great job with, and this is just me pulling against it gently, holding the knife in place. And if you watched in the testing, you noticed that once I changed the angle of the feather sticks, once I laid them on their side and allowed them to stack flat against the stone, I think it was only 3 or 4 strikes and the wood lit right away. No cotton balls, no magnesium shavings, nothing like that. So the ferro rod notch on this, I think you should, if you go past the ferro rod notch, this tumbled finish here, it actually isn't all that great. I mean, it'll eventually do it, but you need, let's put it this way, if you're getting a GSO knife, there is no good reason, in my opinion, not to get that ferro notch at it. I think it's $5, totally worth it. If you use a fire steel or think you will, get it. It makes your life super easy. You know exactly where you're gonna be. It's reliable. I've used it with cheap $4 fire steels, and I've used it with $15, $20 fire steels, and it does the job with any of them. It does. It's awesome. You just need to get it. So what are some things about this knife that I'm not a fan of? Well, after use, even more so, it was easier to get used to it than I thought it would be, but I still don't like the fact that the knife sits really high on the hip. At least like Essie gives you a slight patch here with like a metal tongue. I do like the plastic belt cover better. This is stronger, but where it's at is just ridiculous in my opinion. The butt of the knife goes well into my rib cage area, and it's too high up. And trying to put the knife back at such a high angle does run the risk of puncturing a jacket or a shirt fabric, or you have to be extremely careful. You almost want to grab it like this and guide it in. So if you like hip carrying it, like you probably would unless you scout carry, then you might find issue with this, but I didn't particularly like it. I have since ordered the dangler option. It's back in stock. I have not received confirmation on shipping yet. The website didn't say there was a delay, but you know, that's just kind of the way that it's been with the company so far. Not the best communication, but anyway, so the sheath isn't terrible. There is black residue on the knife. It does pull some stuff from the edge of the sheath. Honestly, long term, I may wind up getting a leather sheath. I don't know. Anyway, the sheath is a decent quality design. I do like the Essie a little bit better. I am getting some residue from the inside, so the knife is rubbing along the edges at some point, but not a bad design. I just don't like how it sits. I will do an updated video when I get the dangler and show you exactly what that looks like, how it works. I did get the 2-in-1. They have 2 different heights, and I got the combo, so I'll show you all that when it comes in. As far as the knife itself, I really, really would love to see Survive do their own version of a convex. I know they may play with different grinds later on. Right now, this is all they do, is the saber to a V-edge in all their knives. But I would like to see it in a convex. This did perform well with my addition, but I just think that they would get a lot of benefit out of adding that grind. That's just me personally. Other than that, there's not much I would change on this knife at all. I mean, it's got outstanding balance. It's super comfortable in the hand. You got tons of scale options now. This pommel protrusion down here is great for striking if need be, without, you know, damaging the scales here. It's got a skeletonized chings. I know they have the new series now that doesn't, but you can put tender inside here, kind of like a SE Laser Strike if you wanted to. The jimping is excellent. I think that it's a brilliant knife. It is right now. It's, as of today, this is my favorite knife. This will be the knife that I go to, and I'm actually very curious. I'm wanting to actually test this against a Bravo 1 LT, the thinner version, maybe do a head-to-head between this knife and that knife, and just see how the Bravo holds up, or how I like or don't like the two. I don't know, but this knife is really solid. I don't hesitate recommending this for the minute, but again, I've said this 50 times, I'll say it 51. The edge is my addition, so good or bad, you have to read into that. Anytime anyone sharpens a knife, to even the minorest degree, they're changing the factory edge. My review of this knife's performance is based on that. I will, however, attest to the steel quality, the heat treat, the assembly, and the durability of the product. The actual sharpness of it may vary, but the quality of the product really cannot be denied in my opinion. It is a great knife. So as usual now, what I'm gonna do is go home tonight, get the flits on it, clean all this rust up here, clean any of these baton marks from the spine, and then go through and see what's required to get this edge back to where I need it. I think I'll be able to get it back with a little bit of stropping. If I have to run it on stones, it'll be the very high grit stones. I may start at like 1,000 and work that kind of that roll out right there. But that's the only area that feels like it's got any issues at all. Then we'll come back and we'll discuss how long it took to restore, what I had to do it, that sort of thing, and give any final thoughts that I may have actually forgot up to this point. As usual, guys, thanks for bearing with me in this testing, and I'll see you right after a quick cut. All right, guys, back from a night of reconditioning the GSO 4.1, and I have to say, it held up extremely well, and it reconditioned about how I thought it would. I did strop for about 20 minutes to see if I could get all the imperfections out, especially the little nick up here near the belly line. And the stropping did it with very few problems. The stropping was going to take a little bit longer than I wanted to give it to get this imperfection out completely up here. The rest of it, it was razor sharp, no problem. I would say 98% of the issues I had with this edge got restored within about 20 minutes on the stropping. So I did go ahead and put it on the stones. It took about, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes. Again, a lot of work had already been done by the strop. I hit the Chaucer 1000 stone to start it with because there wasn't really a lot that needed to be done. And I followed that up with the 5000 Chaucer and then the 15,000 Shapton Pro stones. So outstanding. I can show you the sharpness here now. All right, so trying to keep the paper out of the wind here, but you can see a very, very smooth, there's a wiggle cut for you. No problems at all. Has no issues at all. Sorry for that. I was just trying to keep the paper from blowing. But there you have it. Outstanding knife, held up extraordinarily well. No problems with it in durability or anything, and the imperfections it took were actually minimal compared to what it could have suffered going into the wood that I was batoning in and stuff like that. So my last thoughts on the product are not really with the knife itself, but the availability. And sometimes that's a good thing. I know when you order custom, sometimes you're at 6+ months, maybe even upwards of a year to get it. But that's kind of about the delivery time right now, several months on a product, trying to get it. And that can be frustrating. The biggest issue I have is not really with the weight, but the fact that sometimes the website will allude to delivery times that are shorter than actuality. So it'll say something like, hey, expect this in 5 to 15 days, and it winds up taking like 7 weeks. And that can be frustrating as a consumer. You put your money out there and you're expecting your product to be delivered when they say so. The other thing I've had as of late, the dangle modification, the leather dangler that I just ordered from it. On the website, there's no listed delivery delay. Even on the scales it says ships in 2 to 3 business days, so you have an idea, but it's just listed as available, really. And so I went ahead and ordered it and kind of expected it to ship out any minute, and I hadn't heard anything, so I actually went over to Facebook and was kind of searching through there and saw that they had listed, hey, they're available, and underneath that it says they're available from the vendor, and as soon as they're in stock at Survive, they'll ship out. But there's no indicator on how long that could be. So it is kind of frustrating because, you know, you don't really want your clients to have to go to Facebook to find information that should be readily available on your website. So I think, you know, personally, Survive's got a little bit of a ways to go with, you know, customer satisfaction and being a little bit more efficient with time predictabilities, but, you know, just getting the information on the website, letting people know what's going on. I will tell you this, if you're patient and you're willing to wait and get one, and you like V-edge knives, saber ground knives, or you're willing to put your own edge on them, whatever that is that you might prefer, the 4.1 is well worth the wait. I can't make any quibbles. I have no hesitations about recommending this knife at all. Right now, it is my most highly recommended knife that I've tried. I just think it's outstanding, and the 200-ish price point on these is well worth the dollar level. There you have it, GSO 4.1, awesome blade if you can get one. I do have that modification on order, so I will do a follow-up video when I get that. As usual, guys, thank you for bearing with me through what will probably be another long video. I hope you found some information useful, or if nothing else, entertaining. Until next time, guys, I hope you enjoy all your knives out there. Be safe, and God bless.